color palettes. And so along with the other quote that I mentioned, this one was huge as well, where it's not really, necessary to change. However, survival is also not necessarily mandatory. And so for us, the biggest element is just walking through the process with, other small businesses that you don't have to like sit in this element of like, there's so many different like software as a service applications out there, and you don't need to have 40 different software applications. Like, just adding another software application to your tool set isn't going to fix a problem. You need to actually use the software application that you have. And so for us, we managed all of our projects in a system called Podio, and then we went to Trello, and then we tried Excel spreadsheets, and then we did this, and then we did that, and we kept moving from project management system to project management system. Like every 9 months we were on a different project management system, and we were migrating projects mid-project from one system to the other. It was just ridiculous. And so when we realized it wasn't the project management system, that it was actually our process, and we just needed to commit to it and have our team develop that process, that's where things started to click. And so I think for me, it's really trying to just explain that element to other small businesses of it, paying for a $30 a month system or whatever the heck that is not the solution necessarily. And so that's sort of my big takeaway for me personally from all of this. And I think for other business owners as well. And that's pretty much it.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. So open it up for who has questions and suggestions, comments for Joshua.
So you mentioned that you started having a more regular process when it comes to social media posts. And I was just wondering, what type of notices did your organization notice?
Yeah. So being a digital agency, like typically our hard part is like we post on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and I post on LinkedIn as well. And so there's some of the platforms where we don't get much, if any, engagement at all, just for the nature of our business. I have noticed now, having posted regularly on LinkedIn, every time I post, I get somebody who messages me and it's like, hey, I saw your post the other day. Like, that's an awesome blog post. Like, it'd be great to reconnect. And, so it's like every time I'm posting, I'm getting that type of interaction with someone. It's not necessarily a comment or a like, but it's a legitimate person who's messaging me. And then whether that's we, message back and forth, or we hop on a call, and so I posted a blog post about we did one on like the cost of a website. Like, what does a website actually cost? And obviously you can get a website for like $5 and you can get a website for like $50 million. Like, there's a massive range. And so it really comes down to like, you look at it like buying a vehicle or a house or like any of that type of stuff. And so I posted this blog post on my LinkedIn, and I had someone reach out and they're like, hey, I actually was talking to a friend yesterday and they're looking for a web company. Like, can you send me over, link to your site, link to, what's the next steps for them, and, what's your email address, that type of stuff. And so it was like, that I found that posting regularly on LinkedIn, it hasn't resulted in direct business at the moment, but it's definitely resulted in a massive, a much larger number of prospects than any other platform.
Yeah, it's getting your name out. That's great.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this is super cool, because I was just curious, because I look at it from, I'm in a similar industry to you, sort of, and the clients are saying, hey, we want to spend this money on this type of social media, and I'm thinking, why do you want to do that? But if you had to say, like, which of all those ones that you mentioned were the lowest return on effort, do you have an opinion like which one you would not do if you had to scale back?
Yeah. So for us, I think it would probably be, from a business perspective, I think it would be Twitter, because we'll post something on Twitter. I'll post 1,000 tweets on Twitter for business and I'll get no engagement. I'll post one thing for myself and I'll get like one or two people liking it and someone retweeting it. And so I think unless you are, if you're a small business, and you have a following less than 1 million people on Twitter, as a business, you don't really see much traction. Things like fast food restaurants, and again, I think this is industry specific as well. I think service industry, um, or business services. So like, web. Your accountant's probably not going to have a Twitter account for their accountant agency. Like they may have one personally, but like, I look at like Wendy's and Burger King, like their Twitter is really, really, really good just because they're massive and they're also savage and they just go nuts on Twitter. Yeah, I think for us, Twitter is definitely one of them. Facebook's like crazy hit or miss. There'll be like one time we'll post like 10 different things on Facebook and we'll get no interaction. And then we'll post something that's we think is almost identical to something we posted a month ago and we'll get like 5 comments and like 4 reshares, and it's super hit or miss. It's weird.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, if anybody else knows this, but I understand that a lot of Facebook's visualization of your post has to do with who else sees it or likes it and how active they are on Facebook and who their connections are. So there's a lot of that goes with it. So the more popular people that you get to like your page and to like your post early on, then the more fluid it becomes and visible it becomes to other people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've definitely seen that. And yeah, it's really interesting.
So we're going to be launching a product soon, and it's for a niche. It's for musicians, and I'm trying to think if LinkedIn has anything like that. But would you say? I mean, I'm not asking you for which one we should post on, but like this is a business to consumer kind of thing. But I think you're doing business to business, and it sounds like LinkedIn is sort of your best one. But
Yeah. So on the business to business stuff, LinkedIn's been awesome. I will definitely say we did some advertising on LinkedIn, and you're probably, unless you're like Google or some massive company, we probably would have been better like just throwing the money out the front window, because we literally put like $200 into an ad campaign, like set it all up on LinkedIn. Okay, I can run an ad campaign on Facebook and I can say my budget's $10 a day and it'll run for 20 days and I'll see some traffic to my website. And I did like a $200 budget on LinkedIn. I was like, I want this to run for 10 days. And how LinkedIn does it, or at least did it at the time, was you just have a money bucket and you tell them how long you would like it. And they will spend as much as they would like until one of the two things hits, the day or the money spent runs out. And literally I like refresh the page and it goes ad approved, budget spent. And I was like, wait, what? And I messaged them and they're like, oh yeah, we typically will spend, $500 to $1,000 within the first, 10 hours or 8 hours of the ad running. And then we'll figure out what to do with the ad. And I was like, got it. So unless I have like more than $1,000 dump into this, I'm not even going to know if it's going to work. And so I was like, okay, cool. Let's stay on Facebook. But yeah, consumer products. So like, we've seen like consumer product stuff do decently on, especially if it looks nice, Instagram. We have this little semi truck up here on my shelf. We've got a client who they lease semi trucks, like we're talking $60,000 trucks, or more. And we're doing that through LinkedIn or through Instagram ads rather. And so we're doing Instagram and Facebook ads, and we're leasing $60,000 semi trucks through a web form application on Instagram. And so I don't know from a consumer products perspective. I don't know if Twitter would really be much benefit. Um, but yeah, Facebook and Instagram seem to work pretty well, especially like the lead forms, because you can capture a bunch of information really fast that's already pre-populated from their profile. So that works really well. If you want to just grab their contact info, especially if you're doing like a pre-launch ad, we're like, hey, we're launching, August 1st, like sign up now to find out when we drop the product. Those ads run really well and convert decently, and are typically you'll get, we've done those types of ads and we'll get leads for, 20 cents.
Wow.
Um,
Instagram
which
or
is
Facebook?
both.
Oh.
Yeah. It just depends. Yeah. Yeah. So you grab an email address for 20 cents and then they've opted into your newsletter, and now you can stick them on a newsletter list for 20 cents and possibly sell them a product, a month down the road. So, yeah.
These are my thoughts in a career of networking within a community. Is that sure? Absolutely, lead lists. It's not a dead end. And I'm sure, Paul, you probably understand this language as well, being in insurance too, because I think that we both have traveled this road. But lead lists are a starting place, and it's, I block out a certain amount of time to do that, because I know that those are just a step above cold call, that they're basically somebody who's like, hey, just go ahead and give me my email or something like that. But where I really want to focus my attention is people that I've actually met, like the Steves and the Pauls and the Amats. I might call Steve up one day and say, hey, Steve, I've got this thing going on. I just want to ask you your advice. Or if he weren't participating in 1 million cups, for example, this would be a call that I would reach out to him and say, hey, Steve, how would have a cup of coffee with me on Wednesday morning at 9 a.m.? And instead of it being at a cafe, it would be here at 1 million cups. So that's, and what I found is that my greatest success, and the people who came back to me over time, where 2 years later, they might call me up and ask me for my advice. And I was formerly in banking and in mortgage lending, where they might call me and say, hey, Tara, you and I talk every once in a while, but I remember you're a mortgage lender. We've never really spoken directly. It's just we've built that relationship over time. And they've come to see me as a person that they can have confidence in, that the reason I'm giving them the advice is because I see them as somebody I want to give good advice to. And I think that is only, and I know that people starting out hate to hear this, but that is, you've got to kind of do both. You start with a heavier cold lead list, but then with the goal of turning it into contacts that you will consistently be. And then over time, you want to start making this, the cold leads and the lead list and the bought leads, fewer and fewer time, maybe to the point you get it to say, maybe you're spending 30 minutes a day, 20 or 30 minutes a day on that cold stuff. And then the other time is just me calling up people. Hey, Paul. Hey, Maud. Hey, Steve. Hey, Kevin. How are you doing? We haven't had a cup of coffee in a long time. Or I'm just calling to check, this COVID thing is really weird and crazy. And so I'm just having an opportunity to connect with my people. And when I was a lender, I would actually call and tease and say, man, money is piling up here at the bank, and we're basically giving it away. So please take them hands. Just an opportunity to josh them a little bit, not to play on your name, Joshua, sorry.
It's all good.
Just to josh them a little bit and have an opportunity to talk. And usually the conversation would go from there. But I feel that consistently my life has been better because of the real contacts that I've made versus any lead list or advertising that I've done that's through the cold networks.
Yeah, and I'll build on that a little bit. For our industry, we do websites, we do branding, we do SEO, we do reputation management. We do, like, the problem for us is me running an ad, like the semi-truck leasing company. They came to us for reputation management because they were having an issue with bad reviews. Well, it turned out they're having bad reviews because people didn't understand the lease terms. They didn't understand stuff. So it's like, awesome, let's take them in as a lead, and then let's film like half a dozen videos and do an email campaign to those people being like, hey, if you're going to put the down payment on a credit card, don't do it. If you're going to do this, don't do it. You should have, $5,000 in the bank rainy day fund so you don't get in trouble. Like, so now we've educated on them, them on all of this and told them the do's and don'ts. And if they decide to disregard all that information and still do it, it's on them. They should have made a better decision. And so it was like, cool, we actually don't need the reputation management. We just need a better lead funnel system. And And so one of the things that you were talking about, making that personal connection, that I've been finding through COVID is, so I spend typically about 20 minutes a day in the morning on LinkedIn. Um, and so I'll be connecting with people, just answering messages back and forth. And over, I've been in business for 12 years, and over the past, 5 or 6 years, I've culminated to like over 15,000 connections on LinkedIn. And so at that point, I don't have connections. I have a filtered phone book because I don't know all those 15,000 people. In fact, I'll look at someone and I'm like, oh, we share 14 connections, and I know one of the 14 people. Um, and so it's something that I have started to realize that if I go through, I will actually search not only in my own connections, but then if people are connecting with me and they're like, oh, hey, I'd love to connect. The message that I've been using back is like, hey, I'd love to connect with you, but I really want to actually get to know you. And I've started this literally in February of this year. And I will actually schedule a 15-minute call with them. I will hop on a call, I'll have a conversation, but I can't tell you, like, it got to the point where, especially in like end of March, beginning of April, it got to the point where I have Calendly. And so I just had this 15-minute time slot that people could just book. And I sent out a message, I spent, 3 or 4 days on LinkedIn, like sending out this message of like, hey, I'd love to actually get to know you, blah, blah, blah. I'd love to have this conversation. Like, here's my Calendly link if you're really open to it. If you're just looking to have me as just another person, like a notch in your networking belt, then what's the value in actually connecting? Like, I'd love to have a conversation with you. And it got to the point where I actually had to go into my Calendly and set it up so people could only book 2 of those a day, because my days were literally filling up with just those types of calls. And I was like, I can't even get to email because I was on, like 8 or 12 of those a day, which is a good problem to have. But at the same point, it was just like, I actually needed to get, client work done. And so I've found that, Tara, to your point, like I've found that is so much more beneficial, um, specifically because I'm having a 15-minute conversation with somebody and actually, getting to know what they're doing and interested in that. And I've even led it with the element of like, hey, I'm really interested in, getting to know what you're doing. What's your business story? And I ask all those questions. And then at the end of the call, they're like, wait, well, but what do you do? And so it's like, I'll just bullet point it, and that's about it. It's like, I'll spend 80% of the time talking about them. And it's super memorable for them. And it's good for me because I've been finding some really cool resources. And then also connecting those people. I know with the 1 million cups element, there's the question of like, what can the 1 million cups community do for you? And I've been sort of pivoting that question and using that in this. It's like, hey, what can I do for you? Is there someone in my network I can reach out to or connect you with? Or, that takes all of 30 seconds to send an email to someone and connect 2 people. But that's so much more memorable because, it's actually taking an effort rather than just pushing an accept button on LinkedIn.
Yeah, and you have to be honest about your time. And we're having worked with many professionals at different levels of their career, from consultants who are just coming in and not having any databases to people who've been doing what they do for 30 years and have extended databases and extended client lists. And they don't want to, like you said, they don't want to be bothered with a 15-minute call with anybody that they don't know. They've been there, done that. So those people are actually at a point where they should be bringing on somebody and actually offloading clients that they don't have the time for so much.
Yeah.
So they can focus and concentrate their time on both the clients who are productive for them and the clients that they enjoy working with. So, I mean, you can have a top dollar client, but if every time that client calls, it gives you anxiety and stress, and you've got plenty of other clients that can take your time and attention. I mean, if that's your only client, then by God, make them happy. but if you have other clients that can kind of cover some of that loss of that business, your peace of mind and your well-being is so important in what we all do, no matter what that is. So you could say, hey, you know what? I've brought on a 5-hour per week intern, and I'm going to have Kelly or Kevin or whoever talk to you because I'm tied up that day that you need to meet. And always make it Kelly or Kevin. And soon that person will become Kelly or Kevin's customer and no longer yours. And that's okay.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
we've got 5 more minutes. Any other suggestions, feedback, anything else that people want to share? Joshua, we always like to ask, and I know that you know this from your experience with 1 Million Cups, is what can we specifically, the 4 of us here that are on the call with you today, do for you as a 1 Million Cups community?
Yeah. For me, I'm really interested in just continuing to share, my experience and help small businesses grow. And whether that's something where it's in this type of format where I'm just chatting with, a handful of other business owners, or it's, a, 30-minute call with just giving someone some business advice. I'm always open to doing that. So I think it's, just keeping me in mind for those elements, and not necessarily, obviously there's the whole, website design and marketing side of the business, but, I'm really just looking at it from, how can I help utilize my experience to really help small businesses grow, and any opportunity, to do so.
Yeah, I think we've talked about a lot of that today. Anybody have any suggestions? All right. Well, I am going to thank you very much, sir, for joining us today and presenting. I appreciate it very much, Joshua. And we hope you come back as a participant. You have a lot of valuable advice that is great from that perspective, too, for additional future speakers here at 1 Million Cups Santa Barbara. So I know that you're probably tied up with your chapter as well, but anytime you're free, we would love to have you join us for coffee.
Yeah, absolutely. I know I was actually on a call with another chapter, and they were doing, they'd combined 2 chapters, which was pretty cool. And they were doing like a visiting element. I know some of the chapters right now have been, doing that and combining speakers or that type of stuff. So, our local chapter has been a little all over the map with some stuff recently. So, might be interesting to do some of that too.
All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here for a second. So next week we have, go next here. Not you guys, a little box. You guys stay. All right, so next week we have live, oh gosh, it's Live BX, presented by Geeta Verma, who assists, and they assist students with soft skills required by future colleges and employers. So they're going over some of the stuff, Ahmad, that would be relevant to people that are seeking out things like that, a restaurant program that you're talking about. They're talking about the interviewing skills. They're talking about the dressing appropriately for an interview. And I can't tell you in my years of interviewing how many times I'm sitting across from a person going, seriously, you didn't think that wearing this sequin blouse to a bank interview was a poor choice? I'm just saying. So it's nice to have somebody out there giving a little bit of advice to people on that sort of thing. And that's what this company does. So, and as always, please invite a friend or business contact to join us for the conversation. And if you have suggestions, events, feedback from today's program, or if you would like any contact information for Joshua, or just have a question, please send that to us at santabarbara@1millioncups.com. And if no one has anything else to add, I will let everybody go today.
Hey, thank you, Joshua.
Okay, thank you, Joshua.
Awesome. Thank you guys.
Thanks, Tara.
Yeah, thank you, Tara.
Oh, thank you, Tara.
Have a great week, everyone.
You guys.